Hey guys, final chapter, chapter 19. Let's do it. Hatchet. Treasure. Unbelievable riches. He could not believe the contents of the survival pack. The night before, he was so numb with exhaustion he couldn't even do anything but sleep. All day on the water, he had tired himself so much that in the end, he had fallen asleep sitting against the shelter wall, oblivious even to the mosquitoes, to the night, to anything but with the false gray dawn that he had awakened instantly. And he began to dig in the pack to find amazing, wonderful things. There was a sleeping bag, which he hung to dry over the shelter roof on the outside, and a foam sleeping pad, an aluminum cook set with 4 little pots and 2 frying pans. It actually even had a fork, a knife, and a spoon, a waterproof container with matches, 2 small butane lighters, a sheath knife, and a compass in the handle. As if a compass would help him, he thought, smiling. A first aid kit with bandages and tubes and antiseptic paste and small scissors. A cap that said Cessna on the front of it with large letters. Why a cap? He wondered. It was adjustable, and he put it on immediately. A fishing kit with 4 coils of line, a dozen small lures, hooks, and sinkers. Incredible wealth. It was like all the holidays in the world. All the birthdays were there. He sat in the sun by the doorway where he dropped the night before and pulled out the presents. As he thought of them, and one at a time to examine them, turn them in the light, touch them, feel them with his hands and his eyes. Something that at first puzzled him, he pulled out what seemed to be a broken off, bulky stock of a rifle. And he was going to put it aside, thinking he might be something else in the pack. When he shook it, though, it rattled. And after working at it for a moment, he found the butt of the stock came off, and inside there was a barrel, a magazine, an action assembly, with a clip, and a full box of 50 shells. It was a 22 survival rifle. He had seen one once before in the sporting goods store where he went for bike parts, and the barrel screwed into the stock. He had never owned a rifle, never fired one, but he had seen them on television, of course, and after a few moments figured out how to put it together by screwing the action into the stock, how to load it, put the clip full of bullets into the action. It was a strange feeling holding a rifle. It somehow removed him from everything around him. Without the rifle, he had to fit in, to be a part of it all, to understand it, to use it, the woods, all of it. But with the rifle, suddenly, he didn't have to know. Well, he didn't have to be afraid to understand. He didn't have to get close to a full bird to kill it. He didn't have to know how it would stand if it didn't look at it and moved off to the side. The rifle changed him. The minute he picked it up, he wasn't sure he liked the change very much. He set it aside, leaning it carefully against the wall. He could deal with that feeling later. The fire was out, and he used a butane lighter and a piece of birch bark with small twigs to get another one started, marveling at just how easy it was, but feeling again that the lighter somehow removed him from where he was, what he had to know. With a ready flame, he didn't have to know how to make a spark nest, how to feed the new flames to make them grow. As with the rifle, he wasn't sure he liked the change. Up and down, he thought. The pack was wonderful, but it gave him up and down feelings. With the fire going and sending up black smoke and steady roar of pitch-smelling chunk he put on, he turned once more back to the pack, rummaging through the food packets. He hadn't brought them out yet because he wanted to save them until last, and glory in them. He came up with a small electronic device completely encased in a plastic bag. At first he thought it was a radio or cassette player, and he had a surge of hope because he missed the music, missed the sound, missed hearing another voice. But when he opened the plastic and took the thing out and turned it over, he could see it wasn't a receiver at all. There was a coil of wire held together on the side of the tape, and it sprung free into a 3-foot long antenna. And when he took the tape off, no speaker, no lights, just a small switch at the top, and on the bottom, he finally found it in small print. Emergency transmitter. That was it. He turned the switch back and forth a few times, but nothing happened. He couldn't even hear static, so As with the rifle, he set it against the wall and went back to the bag. It was probably ruined in the crash, he thought. 2 bars of soap. He had bathed regularly in the lake, but not with soap, and he thought how wonderful it would be to wash his hair. Thick with grime, smoke, dirt, frizzy by wind and sun, matted with fish and full-bird grease, his hair had grown and stuck and tangled and grown into a clumped mess on his head. He could use the scissors from the first aid kit to cut it off and then wash it with soap. And then finally, the food. It was all freeze-dried and in such quantity that he thought, with this, I could live forever. Package after package he took out. Beef dinner with potatoes, cheese and noodle dinners, chicken dinners, egg and potato breakfast, fruit mixes, drink mixes, dessert mixes, more dinners and breakfasts than he could easily count. Dozens and dozens of them, all wrapped in perfect and waterproof bags, all the perfect shape of when he had them all laid out against the wall in stacks. He couldn't stand it, and he went through them again. If I'm careful, he thought, they'll last as long as I need them to last. If I'm careful. No, not yet. I won't be careful yet. First, I'm gonna have a feast. Right here, right now, I'm gonna cook up a feast and eat until I drop, and then I'll be careful. He went into the food packs once more and selected what he wanted for his feast. A 4-person beef and potato dinner, with an orange drink for an appetizer, and something called peach whip for dessert. Just add water, it said to the packages, and cook for half an hour or so everything was normal size and done. Brian went to the lake, got water in one of the aluminum pots, came back to the fire. Just that amazed him. To be able to carry water to the fire in a pot, such a simple act, and he hadn't been able to do it for almost 2 months. He guessed at the amounts and he put the beef dinner and peach dessert on to boil. He went back to the lake and brought water to mix in the orange drink. It was sweet and tangy, almost too sweet, but so good that he didn't drink it fast. He held it in his mouth and let the taste go over his tongue, tickling on the sides, sloshing it back and forth, and then down and swallow, and then another. That, he thought, that is just fine. Just fine. He got more lake water and mixed another one and drank it fast. Then a third. Then he sat down near the fire, but looking out across the lake, thinking how rich the smell was from the cooking beef dinner. There was garlic in it and some other spices, and the smells came up to him, made him think of home, his mother's cooking, the rich smells in the kitchen. And at that precise instant, with his mind full of home and the smell of food filling him, the plane appeared. He had only a moment of warning. There was a tiny drone, but as before, it didn't register. And then suddenly, roaring over his head, low and in the back of the ridge of the bush plane, with floats, fairly exploded into his life. It passed directly over him, very low, tipped the wing sharply over the tail of the crashed plane in the lake, cut power, and glided down the long part of the L of the lake, then turned and glided back, touching the water gently once, twice, then settling with a spray to taxi, and stopped with its floats gently bumping the beach in front of Brian's shelter. He had not moved. It all happened so fast that he just hadn't even moved. He sat with a pot of orange drink still in his hand, staring at the plane, not quite understanding yet, not quite knowing yet that it was over. The pilot cut the engine, opened the door, got out, balanced, stepped forward on the float to hop to the sand without getting his feet wet. He was wearing sunglasses. He took them off so he could stare at Brian. I heard your emergency transmitter, and then I saw the plane when I came over. He trailed off. He cocked his head, studying Brian. Damn. You're him, aren't you? You're that kid. They quit looking a month, no, almost 2 months ago. You're him, aren't you? You're the kid. Brian was standing now, but still silent, still holding the drink. His tongue seemed to be stuck to the roof of his mouth. His throat didn't work right. He looked at the pilot, the plane, and down at himself, dirty, ragged, burned, lean, and tough. He coughed to clear his throat. My name is Brian Robson, he said. Then he saw his stew was done. The peach whip was almost done. He waved at it with his hand. Would you like something to eat?